I'm in Rotherham. I'm a survivor of child sexual exploitation from Rotherham. I have had justice. My perpetrators were Pakistanis. And I can always remember I actually reported my abuse 14 years ago. I went to the authorities, my parents did. I sat and gave video interviews to the police. I was willing to work with them. And I never once looked at my perpetrators for what race or religion they were. I just simply stated who they were who'd committed these crimes against me and what they'd done. And as soon as I said the names, I was made to feel as though I was racist and I was the one who'd sort of got the problem. And that had continued all the way up to the J report actually coming out in Rotherham. And it was a way to sort of silence me as well, because I knew I wasn't racist, but I felt like it was used as a way to silence.
And Emma, can you give an example of the way they made you feel that was a racist thing today to say? Did they have any sort of commentary on the fact that the gentleman's name that were involved? I use the word gentleman loosely, obviously. What made you feel that you were being made to feel racist?
Well, specifically being told not to comment on the ethnicity of the perpetrators.
You were told that by whom?
I've been told that numerous times by police, social workers, anybody really who I come into contact with, that it's best to not comment on the ethnicity of the perpetrators.
And how does that make you feel? So what age were you when you were having those types of conversations where you were reporting things that were happening to you and you were being told, well, don't talk about the ethnicity? What sort of age?
I was 13 when I first reported multiple rapes. So I didn't, to be honest, at that age, I didn't really understand what they were sort of getting at about race and things, because I never looked at them for what race or religion they were. I just looked at them for who they were and what they'd done. But I just felt as though my perpetrators made me feel that I was the one in the wrong. And that fed into that. They fed into that, because I felt like, well, maybe my perpetrators are right. Maybe it's not them who's got the problem. Maybe it's me.
And Emma, would you mind, if you're able and willing, to share a short story of what happened to you? What happened to you?
I was groomed from about the age of 12, and I was, and then I started hanging around in Rotherham Town Centre with the people who groomed me when I was 13. And then they was fine at first. They was nice. They was friendly. They was fun. They were exciting. Bit different to me everyday life, because I come from a good family, and my life was going to school, coming home, having my tea with my family, doing my homework, and watching telly and going to bed. So it was a bit of excitement for me. They started then introducing soft drugs and alcohol, which I took because I wanted to be part of the in crowd and be popular. And then after that, the first time I was actually raped. I was a virgin. I was 13, and I was held down and raped. And then that's when it started. It started from there, where I would be raped every week, once a week, every week, and then they'd started passing me around. When I was 14, they took me to a property and they locked me in the property, and they took it in turns to sexually assault me one by one. And that was just how it was. That was sort of my life, really.
And how did you go from being the girl who went to school, came home, had your tea with your family, normal girl as we would, infer, and then did your homework, watched a bit of telly, went to bed? How did you go from being that girl to a girl that was so far away from her family, that you were being taken, locked up in a room, being abused by men? How did that happen, that journey from being the girl that was looked after, regular kid, to thinking it was okay or normal? At one point, did you think it was okay what they were doing?
I didn't. I always felt uncomfortable with it, but I didn't. Nobody made out it was wrong. None of the perpetrators made out it was wrong, and it just escalated so quickly, because what was happening, I'd had the alcohol and the soft drugs, I'd been lying to my parents about where I'd been and who I'd been hanging around with because I knew that I'd be in trouble and they'd not let me out, and I was having so much fun with these people, which is a bit typical teenage behaviour. And then when it went really wrong and I was raped that first time, they put it across to me that that was just, that was just how sex was. Then obviously the violence started, and what they started to do is they started to blackmail me about the drugs and alcohol, saying that they would tell my parents and that I owed them money. So they fed into that thing where I thought, being a child, as you do, thinking that I would be in real serious trouble and that I was the issue. They then started threatening that they would gang rape my mum if I started speaking about it. They knew where I lived because I'd told them in that grooming process. They knew what school I went to, so I couldn't get away.
And Emma, I was just listening to you and the horror of it, and you can imagine how much that everything in you would want to protect your parents. Everything in you would do anything to protect your parents. So the idea that they were suggesting they were going to go and gang rape your mum, I guess anyone would think, right, no, I'll do anything but that. You can feel how easily that would work. Yeah. Even now, if someone threatened to attack my parents' home, they could take mine, take whatever, before that could happen. But based on what you were talking about, Emma, you said you reported it to the police at 13, but were raped again. Did the abuse carry on after you went to the police? Yeah,
I went to the police at 13. It continued. They said it was my word against his, and he was quite a nice guy, so it probably wouldn't stand in court. I'd saved the clothes that I'd been raped in. They actually lost them, so there was no evidence anymore. Then I slipped back into being exploited because for every one perpetrator that went away, there were another 10 because I was so vulnerable at that point. They got rid of all my friends. I'd got no friends. I was out of school at that point because the schools wouldn't have me in school because of the people I associated with. So I slipped back into CSE. I reported again at 14. They said there wasn't enough evidence. So what happened is because it wasn't getting better and the police wouldn't do anything, my parents actually moved me out of the country because nobody wanted to stop it, and that was the only way that they could stop it.
Okay, and so you were moved out of the country. And this is something I've seen a lot of in the examples I've been looking at, is parents needing to move their children, their daughters, out of the UK to try and get away from these gangs because the gangs are networked between cities. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, Emma?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know that if I'd have been kept in the UK, even if I'd have moved 3-4 hours drive away, they would have drove and come and got me because I'm still easy to access, but they couldn't get on a plane and come and get me.
And so, obviously, we don't want to know where you are, where you're living, or anything about that. But just for reference, you are still out of the UK now. And have you moved on with your life? How do you see your life when you look back?
No, I'm back in the UK now, and I have got justice now. So I'm moving on. I've moved on so much, and you can move on. I'm lucky that I've got a really brilliant family who have supported me all the way through, and actually without them I wouldn't be where I am today.
Can I ask you something else, Emma? Do you have children?
Yes, I have one.
And how do you feel when you look at your child versus the UK that you had to leave?
It frightens me. I saw he's a little boy, he's only small, so obviously this is something that won't, if it ever did, it wouldn't affect him yet. It probably won't do because I'm quite on the ball and aware of things. But I just feel that, I can't imagine as a mother someone harming my baby. And I also can't imagine that if somebody did, me having to move my baby away from his home while the person who's harmed him walks about in theirs and is free and can just do what they want. And it's, I'm very aware, and I feel that I do have to. I probably am a bit more protective than I should be because I know the dangers out there.
I don't know. I don't think any mum can be too protective. I'm going to ask you one little last question, Emma, and then I have to let you go, sadly. Yeah. Were you glad you had a little boy?
Yeah. I think if I'd have had a girl, I would have been, when she got to a teenager, really, it would have drove me mental, really. And so, to me, I'm glad I had a little boy. It's a bit of it's not a safe option because it still happens to boys.
Of course, and I wouldn't want to
yeah.
infer or generalise in any way this is only a problem for little girls, but I know, speaking probably more as a mum, I would be glad I had a boy if I were you, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.